This is a really classic, really simple recipe, so you can add to it as well. So with this buttercream, I've actually added pistachio paste to it. You can add lemon zest, you can add Grand Marnier, you can kind of do whatever you want, but this is a fantastic base to start with. So what I have in front of me is first to make a syrup. So I have 1.25 cups of white sugar, 2/3 cup of water. And then I have for my meringue, I have a little bit of cream of tartar, so 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar, teaspoon of vanilla, and then 5 egg whites. I'm gonna show you how to separate the eggs, so that's why I have this extra egg right here. And then I have 1 pound of butter, and this butter is cold. The thing is, it doesn't have to be ice cold, like for instance, when you're working with like a shortbread or doing, like pastries or anything like that. You just want it cold enough that when you add it to the hot meringue, it doesn't turn into soup. You want it to basically maintain a little bit of its structure so that it creates this really amazing buttercream. So the syrup's really simple. I'm just gonna combine the sugar and the water, and then I'm just gonna turn this to medium. And I'm gonna let this come up to basically a softball stage, which means about 238 degrees. So the reason why I'm making a sugar syrup is this is really what gives this an amazing structure. It makes the meringue super stiff and strong, but also it means there's no grit, so you're not gonna get any like sugar particles in the buttercream. It's gonna be silky smooth. So while that's heating up, I'm gonna get going on the rest of my eggs. So I'm gonna show you how to basically break apart an egg so that you can separate the white from the yolk. It's pretty simple. So you crack it like you normally would. So for me, that means directly on the board. And then you hold this over a bowl that you want to catch the whites. And you just very gently let the white slip out. There's still a little white in there though. I'm gonna shimmy this from shell to shell, being really gentle. And then that's it. And then I'm left with this adorable little egg yolk. So I don't know, sometimes I save these to make ice cream, to make pasta. The egg yolks are actually really handy, so don't throw this away, keep this on hand. So while the sugar syrup is finishing up, I'm actually gonna get going on the meringue. So I'm gonna take my 5 egg whites, and those are room temp. And the important thing about having the egg whites be room temp, it's kind of the opposite of doing whipping cream. With whipping cream, you want the cream to be super duper cold, but with meringue, you actually want the egg whites to be room temperature. And the reason why is because it just makes it a lot easier to aerate the egg whites. And also, if you really want amazing meringue, do it in a copper bowl. I don't own a copper bowl. I feel like most of you don't own a copper bowl. So instead of a copper bowl, that is what the cream of tartar does. It actually activates the egg whites. It works with it and basically makes it stiffer, have firmer peaks, and basically just a little bit more awesome. I want this to be kind of like a soft peak stage. All right, the syrup is at 238 degrees. So I'm gonna pour this in really carefully, just a little bit at a time while my egg whites are going. Well, I'm gonna let this go for about 3 minutes. I basically want the hot syrup to work with the egg whites to create a really shiny, really stiff meringue. The thing too about whipping it so that it gets really shiny and stiff is I'm also sort of whipping out the heat, because if I were to throw all the butter in here at 238 degrees, you could imagine what would happen. It just becomes soup. So you want to get some of that heat off. It doesn't have to be, super cold or anything, but you definitely don't want it to be as hot as when it straight comes off of the stove. So now I'm going to add 1 chunk of butter at a time. It's kind of tedious and annoying, but this is how you got to do it. And if you add too much at a time, this has happened to me. What happens is you'll get like butter flying at your face. So you want to go on a low speed, adding just a chunk at a time. And there is a moment where it's going to look like it's not going to come together. It's going to look liquidy. You're going to freak out. But honestly, it comes back together and makes the most beautiful buttercream you've ever had. Miracles of miracles, it came together. I mean, you can see, look at this. It got soupy. And that happens every single time. And the reason why is because the butter, it's melting down a little bit. You're waiting for everything to come together. But trust in the system. It's now chill to the touch, and you get this absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous buttercream. So now I'm gonna add a little bit of vanilla extract, whip it together, and then my buttercream's done. All right, I think I've earned a taste of frosting. Let's see. Oh my God. The texture is just absolute insanity. I know it's gross, but I could eat like that entire thing in a sitting. So delicious. All right, well, this buttercream is done. So now I'm gonna whip up the chocolate buttercream, which is made in more of a classic style. And then it's time to decorate the cakes. Chocolate buttercream is actually, for me, one of the easiest frostings to make. And the reason why is that chocolate actually stabilizes everything. Like I mentioned before, for some reason, when I make classic, just plain buttercream, where it's just the butter and the powdered sugar and that's it, a lot of times the butter will simply curdle, or God forbid, it's not the perfect temperature and it'll harden up. Just a lot of different things can happen. But when you add melted chocolate to the mix, it actually smooths everything out, really emulsifies everything, which just means it gives it a really consistent texture. And I just think this works every single time and it tastes absolutely amazing. So I love it. I'm also combining white chocolate and semi-sweet chocolate or dark chocolate to get this perfect milk chocolate flavor. It's so delicious. All right, so what I have in front of me is 2 cups of powdered sugar. If you wanted to have a denser consistency, you can always add more. You could add up to 4 cups of powdered sugar if you wanted to. I have a ½ pound, or basically 2 sticks of softened butter. I left this out overnight so it's completely room temperature. It shouldn't be greasy to the touch though. If it's actually kind of oily on top, that means it's a little too warm and starting to separate. So you want to make sure it's softened but not like warm. I then have just a ½ teaspoon of vanilla extract, 2 tablespoons of heavy cream, and then I have 2½ ounces of melted dark chocolate, 2½ ounces of melted white chocolate, and then of course, a little pinch of salt. So to get started, I'm actually just gonna first whip together the butter. So the butter is fully whipped. You can see it has a really lovely, even texture. So now I'm going to have this on low speed and I'm gonna add a little bit of powdered sugar at a time. That looks absolutely delicious. All right, so now I'm gonna add my chocolate just a little at a time. And so I've actually cooled this melted chocolate just a little bit. You don't wanna put super hot chocolate right into it. This looks amazing. So now I'm just gonna add a little bit of vanilla, a pinch of salt, and my heavy whipping cream to bring it all together. Moment of truth. I mean, I don't see how this can't taste delicious. Wow, that is absolutely wonderful. I love that it's milk chocolate. It's just sweet and luscious and perfect. I think this is gonna be amazing with the devil's food cake. If you wanted this to be darker, you could just switch out the white chocolate for more dark chocolate and you'd be all set.